Cecilia Cass, a middle-aged married woman with no children, waking up in the middle of the night. She plans to escape from her abusive husband Adrian Griffin. She quietly drugs him with diazepam to avoid waking him up, and retrieves her belongings while monitoring him through a camera on her phone. As she is about to leave, she encounters Adrian's dog Zeus and removes his shock collar. However, the dog accidentally sets off a car alarm, forcing Cecilia to run for it. Her sister Emily takes her by the car. Adrian catches up and demands that Cecilia let him in. She refused, then he smashes the car window before they escape. Later, Cecilia learns that Adrian found the diazepam bottle she dropped. After 2 weeks, Cecilia is staying with her childhood friend Detective James Lanier and his little daughter Sydney. Cecilia was in a bad condition, scared to leave the house, but James encourages her to go outside. While checking the mailbox, Cecilia is startled by a jogger and runs back home, thinking it's Adrian. Emily visits Cecilia and shows her a news article reporting that Adrian has committed suicide. Cecilia is skeptical and thinks Adrian is still alive and tormenting her. Cecilia struggles to come to terms with the news of Adrian's death, recounting to Emily and James the extent of his abusive behavior and how she took birth control in secret to avoid getting pregnant and being trapped with him. However, her shock turns to surprise when Adrian's will is revealed, leaving her a $5 million fortune on the condition that she proves her mental competence and avoids criminal activity. As a gesture of gratitude, Cecilia gifts James a new ladder and sets up a college fund for Sydney.
Okay. It's a new bank account. Kid.
As night falls, Cecilia is overcome by a creeping sense of unease. She feels as if there is someone else in the room with her. Next morning, Cecilia tries to spend her day as usual, cooking breakfast for James and Sydney. When she turns her back, an invisible force sends a knife clattering to the floor and turns up the heat on the stove, causing a dangerous fire that Sydney must quickly extinguish. As the night wears on, she ventures outside to find James and Sydney, only to be greeted by the chilling sight of someone's breath beside her in the cold air. Cecilia and Sydney sleep soundly until an invisible force abruptly yanks their covers off and begins silently snapping pictures of them. Cecilia awakens and reaches for the covers, but is confronted with what appears to be footprints standing on the bedding. The prints slowly advance toward her until she feels a powerful shove and cries out for James. Despite her insistence that someone else is in the room, James and Sydney can't see anyone. Later, Cecilia attends an interview at an architectural firm, only to discover that her bag has been emptied and her work is missing.
I know I put them in here.
Cecilia?
Her anxiety mounts until she faints, and a subsequent blood test reveals high levels of diazepam in her system. To her horror, she finds the bottle she dropped in James's bathroom with Adrian's bloody fingerprints on it. She told them that Adrian is still alive and tormenting her. Cecilia and James confront Adrian's brother Tom with the evidence. Cecilia believes that Adrian has used his expertise in optics to make himself invisible, but Tom dismisses the idea, telling them that Adrian's supposed suicide and presenting crime scene photos to back up his claims. Desperate for support, Cecilia turns to Emily, only to be met with suspicion and hostility after Emily receives a venomous email from Cecilia's account. Cecilia told her that she didn't. Emily is convinced that Adrian is dead and that her sister is responsible for the email.
No.
Left alone with her thoughts, Cecilia reads the email and becomes sure that Adrian is still alive. Sydney enters the room to find Cecilia weeping over the malicious email. Sydney offers her help, but an unseen force strikes her in the face. Sydney believes that Cecilia hit her. James arrives and escorts Sydney out, despite Cecilia's pleas of innocence.
You to think that I did it.
Cecilia is alone. She taunts Adrian to reveal himself, spilling coffee grounds on the floor and waiting for him to appear. Then she calls Adrian's phone, which rings in the attic. she discovers it along with a message reading "surprise" from an unknown number. Cecilia spills paint on the invisible man to expose him, but he washes it off and attacks her, choking and throwing her across the room. Cecilia hails an Uber and heads to Adrian's house.
Stinson Beach.
She enters the basement and discovers a suit and machine covered in cameras that can turn the wearer invisible, revealing how Adrian has been stalking her. As she tries to flee with the suit, she encounters another set of invisible footprints and pushes away the attacker before escaping to her car. Cecilia going to meet Emily in a restaurant to try to explain her situation. However, while they are sitting in a conversation, a knife floats between them, slashing Emily's throat and leaving the murder weapon in Cecilia's hand. Panicked patrons witness the scene and call the police, who quickly arrest Cecilia for the crime. She tries to tell them that Adrian is still alive and responsible, but they take her to a psychiatric ward and sedated after hearing his voice taunting her. In custody, Cecilia is interrogated about Emily's murder but fears that Adrian is listening in. To make matters worse, the doctors reveal that she is pregnant. Adrian's brother Tom visits her and offers a deal: split the inheritance with him or return to Adrian with their child, as he swapped out her birth control without her knowledge. In a moment of desperation, Cecilia uses a quill pen and sticky material to gather evidence against Tom. She hears a weather report telling that it will rain in a few days. Cecilia realizes she may have a chance to prove her innocence and expose Adrian's true nature. Days later, it's Cecilia's chance in this rainy day. She decides to turn the tables on the invisible man. In the psychiatric ward shower, she begins to cut her wrist with the pen, declaring that she won't let Adrian have their baby. The invisible man attempts to stop her, but Cecilia stabs him with the pen, causing the suit to malfunction. A guard arrives, but the invisible man tases him, then he kills more guards. Cecilia grabs a gun and escapes outside.
You fight me and hurt them
where the invisible man threatens Sydney's life. Cecilia calls James for backup and returns back to the house. As the invisible man attacks Sydney, James arrives and is beaten badly. Cecilia sprays him with a fire extinguisher and shoots him 4 times, unmasking him to reveal Tom. Meanwhile, a SWAT team rescues Adrian, who was kidnapped by Tom. Although the police believe Adrian was a pawn, Cecilia knows the truth and confronts him at his house. During a dinner Adrian arranged, Cecilia tells him he can't have their baby, but Adrian tries to charm her. She excuses herself to the bathroom. Moments later, the security camera catches Adrian's throat being slashed with the knife Cecilia took from Tom. Despite seeing the suit in her bag, Cecilia maintains that Adrian committed suicide. James appears and accepts her story. She leaves finally feeling that she's set free. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggested movies, please let me know in the comments.